Congratulations, you have reached the end of the software production part, which is video 6, which is testing and maintaining your software. Of course, we've got video 7, that's a bonus. But anyways, testing is important because you need to make sure that it is user-friendly. You also need to make sure that there are no bugs, because the last thing you want to do is release a product with lots of bugs, or for your software to crash or break after you release it. That's the worst case scenario, because if you do that, you have more refunds and more support tickets. You have more support tickets with people because they don't know if the software works on other people's computers. They really want to do their best to make it work, but then you have lots and lots of support tickets. So your whole goal in this video is to lessen the amount of bugs. You might run into bugs later, but you want to minimize as much as possible. So how do you test? How do you test it? Well, first you need to do is test it yourself first. Test yourself first to make sure everything is good, it's user-friendly to yourself, and make sure it works. If it's web-based software, test it with different browsers. You want to beta test. You have beta testers. Have friends test it out. If you've got Windows-based software, then have friends with different Windows operating system test it out. Or if you have web-based software, ask friends to test it out with different internet browsers, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Opera, Chrome, Google Chrome, Safari with Macintosh. Have different browsers tested out by yourself and by friends as well. And ask your friends what could be improved on the software. If it's stuff that you can upgrade later, that's fine. But if it's a usability thing that's confusing to them, it might be understandable to you because you created the software. But if it's confusing to them, then you definitely want to get it fixed. So web-based, use different browsers. Windows-based, try to use different operating systems, different computers, because not all computers were made equal, unfortunately. And when I released my CBNet Builder product, was Windows-based, I had a lot of problems because not all computers were created equal. And because the software was created in a specific, I believe it was Visual Basic 6, it needed some files that not all computers had. And because of that, it increased my support tickets. I found myself pretty much up for weeks upon weeks upon weeks just working on support issues. If I had done all this maintenance and testing earlier, well, I tested it, but if I had minimized as much as possible and stuck probably with web-based software, then I probably would be able to increase the sales, but as well increase the time that I can spend for myself instead of supporting constantly. So you want to minimize that amount. If it's web-based, PHP-based, make sure that the script can handle a lot of hits. What I mean by that is this. You could use an auto exchange service or some sort of hit service to make sure that your script can handle it. Basically, throw as much hits at your script as possible. Now, I normally would not recommend that you use any of these auto traffic exchange hit sites. But in this case, it's okay because all you're doing is you're really testing your server to see whether or not they work. A lot of these auto traffic exchange sites are mainly people that are trying to send traffic to their site, but most of the time, at least from my experience, it doesn't work. But just use this to test your server. But one thing to keep in mind is if you're on a shared server, you probably don't want to do this. You probably only want to do this if you have a virtual private server or a dedicated server. So if you're using something like HostGator.com, I would highly recommend you not try this route. But if you're using something like Servant.com, then I would highly recommend that. Servant actually is one of the best web hosting companies I know of, and I've been through over 35 plus web hosting companies. So definitely try them out and see if you can use them. Do your best to even crash or break your script purposely. Your goal here is basically to put your script under these intense situations to see whether they're going to work or not. And also, can the server withstand lots of hits? For example, some PHP scripts, when they're created, they're not created to handle a lot of people using the script, so it crashes. You definitely want to avoid that. If it is Windows based, make sure that the software works on your computer, as many other computers that you can find, and of course as many different Windows based systems. So what I would recommend, make sure you test it on Windows ME, Windows XP, XP Home, XP Professional, Windows Vista, because Vista can cause issues. I have learned Vista can cause issues with Windows 7. I don't know because Windows 7 is fairly new, so I don't know a lot about compatibility issues, but I will say that you will run into more compatibility issues with Windows, but I provide that in this video because just in case you want to go that route. But for the most part, I would highly recommend that you go with a PHP based script. So try to crash or break your Windows script. Put it under intense pressure to test different cases. Now we can move on to maintenance. Maintenance involves updating the software, adding features. You got to think about what are the costs involved. You might want to speak to your programmer about possible features that you can add. Don't add them yet, but get a quote from them just so that you know the costs that are involved. Is your programmer going to be readily available in the future? You want to talk to your programmer and plan ahead. And make sure that it is bug-free by using beta testers. And what I would do is create a plan of what the costs involve in the future. If your programmer is going to be readily available, if not, who would he recommend or who would she recommend that you can approach in the future? Generally the case is the programmer is going to be around and it's going to be readily available in the future. So if I were you, I would pay the programmer some sort of bonus, just because most people don't pay people bonuses. If you do that, you will stand out from the crowd. If you contact a programmer in the future, they are more likely to be readily available for you because of the bonus, and you can sometimes email them once in a while to see how they're doing. Sort of like create some sort of friendship, but you don't want to be too friendly with them because they're still working for you. If you're too friendly with them, things can end in a bad way, and your programmer might not be readily available for you in the future. But those are just some things to keep in mind so that you can keep maintaining the software, because there's no doubt you will run into situations where you have to update the software. And maybe you can update the software and charge people a little bit more for future, updates.